Hello again, and welcome to this new episode of the Revit WPF series, and we finally got to the WPF part. So before starting anything, I just want to show you a demo of what are we going to do today. So last time we have created this tab with this panel and all these buttons. And we stopped there. And today, if we click on any of those, so this one, for example, we're gonna get this small window, which is a mini active view manager. So this is the active view in which I am right now. It's telling me the name of it, which is South, the ID, and the view template, which is none because there's no view template in here. And if I apply any view template, is gonna change actually to tell me that this is architectural elevation. Alright, so we can do other things also. We can rename this. Let's say this is a new view and set the name, and you can see it is changed. If I close it, it's gonna change also in here, hopefully. No, maybe we need to go to other one and then come back. Yes, it did change. Great. And also what we can do is actually print this view. And before I print anything, in the printer settings, I have PDF creator set in there. So if I click in, or if I click on print view, it is going to use that. So you can see in here, I'm going to save it. And yeah, I can open it in here. And as you can see, it did print this view with a good quality. Yeah, so this is what are we going to do today. And let's first of all take a look at the roadmap for today's one. So first of all, we're going to take a look at what is the WPF project in the Visual Studio. And we have to add the references of the Revit API. We already did this with the previous video, so we're not going to do point 2 and point 3 also, which is set in the manifest.addin file. So we are going to first of all take a look at the main window.xaml file, and then we're going to take a look at the interface when we deal with this kind of files. And we're going to take a look at the concept of containers and then adding components to them. And then the last thing, how to handle events of clicking and other events as well. So without further ado, let's jump into Visual Studio. So here we are. Let's open the Visual Studio. And usually if you want to create a WPF project, you go to create new project, and in here you can type WPF, and you want to go ahead with this one, WPF app.NET framework. But because we do already have a project that we used in the previous episodes, I'm going to show you how to add a window into that. So we stopped in here last time. Let's go ahead in here and add a new item. And as you can see, we don't have a window in here, all right, but we have something called user control WPF. So I'm going to click on this one, and it has this .xaml extension, and this is what we need. So I'm going to call this one main window, and just hit add, and they are going to open this this interface for us. In here we can visualize our window, and in here we can write code in XAML, and in here we have this solution, and here we have properties to view the properties of our components. All right, so the trick is just to change this user control to be window, and then you can see our window appearing. Great. So first of all, let's take a look at the syntax used in here. So this is XAML, which is a markup language. So it is not like C# in which you can write if statements, try, you can use different APIs and all of that. In the XAML language, you use tags, all right? And every single tag, you can visualize it in here, except for some tags like a grid, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So to write components in XAML, you have to write something like this, an angle bracket, and then you type the name of the component. Say, for example, button with the first letter in uppercase. And then if you just want a button, you just hit slash, and as you can see, the angle bracket is closed. All right. Another way to write a tag is by writing or to close first of all the angle tag, and then add another tag which contains this slash. So now if you have tags like these, you can go ahead inside them and hit enter, and now you can add things inside this tag, and this tag is going to be a parent. All right, like this window tag is a parent for whatever tags that are going to be inside it. But logically, we don't add anything inside a button, all right? So logically, it doesn't make sense to use this way. Rather, we can use a slash in here, and there you go, we have our tag. So we have our button, and this is the button, by the way. It is so big, it's taken the whole space. All right, and then we can add attributes to our button to make it big, small, which color, what do you want to write in there, and so on. If you want to know what types of tags you can add, you can just start this this angle tag, or this angle bracket, sorry, and it's gonna give you different options in here. Or you can go in here to the toolbox and check different stuff that you can add. You can either let me just remove this one. You can either just grab and drop them on the window. So I can add a label in here, you can see it appearing. I can zoom in, I can change its position, I can change the size of it, the margin, whatever. Or I can directly write in here, and you can see it is generated with all these attributes inside. And the attributes, you can either write them from here, like add a new attributes like style, for example, or by clicking on this tag in the properties, you can see all these sections appearing. So you can change, for example, the color of the background. You can change the color of the writing to be something like blue, like this. All right, so you can either use this panel for the properties, or you can just type them in here. So let me start the serious stuff now. So let's take a look at our window. So this is our window. It is not resizable, so I cannot go ahead and do something like this with my window. And this is a property called, I'm going to add it in here to my window, called resizable mode, and I set it to no resize. I don't want it to be resizable. All right, my window in here is vertically laid out. So for that, I want the content, I don't want to give it a height. It's going to be it's going to take the height of the components inside it. So if the components are going to take 100 pixels, it's going to be 100 pixels. If it is more, it's going to take more. All right, and to do that, we just need to set an attribute called size to content, and I'm going to use height. Great. So in here, I'm just going to height and change this one to be auto. All right, to take whatever space is in there. So now we have a label. You can see it taking this space. If I remove the label, it is going to take no space at all. All right. And the width, I want it to be something like 300. All right, so these are the attributes of my window. I can add another attribute. By the way, you can see that you can add the attributes one on top of the other, or next to each other, separated with this space. All right, I'm just going to add one more attribute, which is title. And I'm going to write in here mini active view manager. All right, there you go. We can see the title in here. So these are the attributes of the window, and we are going to add one more later on. Now let's go ahead and create a border. So I'm going to remove this grid. I don't need it right now, and I'm going to create a border instead, just to avoid my items or my components going onto the edges, just to give it some space. All right, so for that we can use something called border, like so, and I'm going to put all the items inside this border, and the attribute that is going to give me that spacing is called padding, and I'm going to set it to be 15. So 15 pixels from the top left, top left, right, and bottom. All right, great. Now I can add stuff in there. I'm going to use a component called stack panel, and the stack panel is a kind of container that puts stuff one on top of the other. And inside this stack panel, I can start adding my things. So as you can see in here, we have, first of all, this label, and this one is also labeled, this one and this one. So I'm gonna be creating, first of all, 4 labels, and maybe 5. Let's create 5 because this one also is a label. So I'm just going to create one, and then I'm gonna copy. So label, and this content is, what did we write in here? So this is the active view, so I'm going to type active view, and let me first of all close this so you can see it. Great. And as I said, we can go to the properties. When I work with colors, I don't like typing in here unless I know which color is it, but to use this eyedropper, I go to the properties and just open, I want to use this palette, so I'm going to pick this color from here, and you can see it right there, but I don't want it to be for the background, rather I want it to be for the foreground, so I'm going to use it like so. No, this is the opposite. So this is for the foreground, and for the background I want it to be white. Great. So this is the color, and for the style I'm going to use something called Franklin Gothic. So let's use this font, and you can see them generated in here, the attributes. All right, so either writing them or picking them from the properties that are going to be in here. So this is the first label. Let's go to the next one. The next one, we cannot write the content because Revit is going to tell us what is the name of the view, what is the ID, and all of that. So we are just going to say label, and instead of writing which content, we want to write that later, but we need something to bind it or to link it to this component, and we can use something called x name, and we can call this label underscore name, and later on we're going to grab this component and give it a content. All right, so we're going to see that later. And for this, I'm going also to add a margin to make some space in here. I don't want it to be on the edge of this stack panel, so I want it to be 10 from the left. So if I write just 10, it's going to be 10 from the left, 10 from the top, 10 from the bottom, and 10 from the right. I want it rather to be 10 0, so 10 from the sides and 0 from the top and the bottom. Or what you can do is, if you have different margins that you want to set for the right, left, and top, bottom, you can write 10, which is left, and then 0 for the top, and then you can go ahead and say, for example, 20 in the right and 0 in the bottom, or say 9, for example. So you can see that they are different. But in case you want to you want the right and the left to be the same, top and bottom to be the same, you can just say 10 for the sides and 0 for the top and the bottom. Great. So let me just copy this one, or just use the Control D to copy this 3 more times, and the second one is going to be ID, the third one is going to be template. Alright, so let me go like this. So you can call them whatever you want. Alright, so I'm just using label underscore just to remember that this is a label that I'm referencing. Great. So after that, after that we had this line separator, and this is just a tag called separator. Alright, let's close that, and again I'm going to write a label for this one in here, enter view name. So again, label, and I want to specify the content because it's not going to come from Revit, so let's type write or enter view, enter view name. Great, let's close this tag in here, and you can see that. Great. One more thing that I want to add in here, by the way, is the font size. So let's change it from here in the text. Let's set this to be 20. Hit enter. There you go. Great. I can change this one also, by the way. Let's change this one to the same color. This is the foreground color, and let's pick this color one more time. Great. So now we have the first part of our window, not this one. So we have this part. Now we can add this, which is a text box. So inside my stack, I'm going to add a text, not block, box, and in here I'm going to we need to reference this one also, and let's just call it text. And also I want to give it the same margin as this one, so I'm just gonna copy over this. So at the end you can see that this one is starting from here and the others all have this this margin. All right, this is why I am adding this this margin on the left, on the right also. So this is the text box. Now let's go to the next part, which is the buttons. So for the buttons, I'm going to add another stack panel, but this time is going to be horizontal. I'm just trying to use different stuff just for the beginners of you, just to see what things we can use in here. So I'm going to add another stack panel. For some reason I didn't write it correctly, so this is stack panel, and let me close that. And in here I'm going to orientation, which is an attribute, and set this to be horizontal. All right, so they are not going to be stacked over each other, they're going to be next to each other. Great. Great. Now let's check something called grid also, which is a great component to create a nice layout. So using this grid, you can create columns and rows, and then inside these cells, you're going to get cells when you create columns and rows. You can put inside them whatever components you want. For our case, we're not going to create any rows in here. You can see that I have just columns. So this is, we can say this is first column, second column is empty, and then a third column for the button. So to create columns or rows, you need to use something called grid column definitions. If you want to create rows, the same thing, grid row definitions. So we need to define those and then go with column definitions, and now we need to give it a width. So the width is going to be, you can just type 50 or whatever. I'm going to set this to be asterisk, and in a second I'm going to explain what is this. Copy that 2 more times, and second one I'm going to set it to be 44. Let me check the text box. Let's go to the layout. You can see that the width of it's 244. So I want my buttons to start from here with the text box and finish in here. So I am setting the first column to be asterisk, second 44, and third asterisk. This means that the whole width is going to the whole width is going to be, for example, 244. We are going to take 44 for the second column, and then whatever is left is going to be divided between this one and this one. If I had, for example, 3 of them as asterisks, it's going to take 244 divided by 3. All right, I hope this is clear. So all the rest is going to be divided by the number of columns that have asterisks. If it is just one, it's going to take the whole rest of the width. If there are 2, they are going to be divided by 2, and so on. Great. Now, what are we going to do is actually go outside of this grid column definitions, but inside the grid, and start adding my buttons. So I'm going to create the first button in here. We cannot see it clearly yet. By the way, I need to give this stack also a margin because I don't want it to start from there. I said I wanted to start with the text box, so I'm just gonna copy the margin one more time. And this, by the way, could be done differently. This is just one way of doing this thing, but you can do it in many different ways. So let's go ahead, as I said, and create a button, or yeah, we did create a button. It is here. So this button is going to have a content, and the content is set view name. So I'm just gonna type set view name, and there you go. This is my button. So I want to give this a width of 100. So this takes 100, and then a space of 44, and then the other one is going to be also 100. We could do this, by the way, without the grids. I'm just showing you how to use the grids. And the way to use the grids, usually we take our component and put it in the column, which row. We don't have rows, we do have columns. So I can type grid.column and specify in which column I want it to be. So I'm going to put it in the 0. This is the 0. So this is 0, 1, 2. All right. And if I copy this one again, or just use Control D and put this in the second one, you can see this is the second one, the last one. So this is the first, the second, and then we have a space between them. All right, so you can see that 44, 1 space and 1 other space. We do have 2 of them, as I said before. All right, so the second one is print or print view. You can call it whatever you want. And I want to change the color to be this. So as I said, I like using the properties, and I'm going to use, I'm going to use this picture. And then I can just come here and copy these two lines over here. Now we have the same thing. Great. Now I want, when I hover over my button, to show a hand. So I can go in here and add cursor, and you can choose what kind of cursor you want to add. I'm going with the hand in here, and one more time, just copy this one for our other button. Great, I think they are ready. Do I want to change anything? You can change the font size, you can change the font style, and many different things. Great, so now we have our window ready. I just need to change the background color of the window. And as I said before, this border, by the way, now we can visualize that this border is giving me this spacing, all right? Because without this border, if I set this to be 0, you can see everything is on the edge. But I'm going to put it back to something like 15. The last thing, as I said, I want to give this a background color, so I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so here, as you can see, we need a margin in the bottom. So let's go to the text box and add maybe 10 instead of 0. Now it is nice. Yeah, it is good. All right, so we are done with this. The last thing we need to add is something called event handlers. All right, so whenever I click on these two buttons, I want something to happen. And the event handlers, you can see them in here. So here is the properties, and if you click on here, on whatever component, you're gonna have different events. So for the button, you can see all the events that you can handle. So one of them is click. When I click, I want something to happen, all right? So I can either write what is the name of the function that is going to be called when I click in here, or as before, we can add it in here. So because we are already here, let's type that, which button is this one? Yeah. So for the first one, let's call this set view name. And for the second one, yeah, so it is generated in here. We're going to get back in here in a second. For the second one, we're going to call it just print view. All right, and click enter, and it is generated also in here. So let me show you what is this. This is when you create your window XAML. If you click on this arrow, there is a file generated to be behind the scenes and control your XAML window. All right, so anything that happens when I click, let me just save this file and go back to there. Anything that happens when I click the set view name, I can define it inside this function, and for the print view, I can define it inside this function. All right, and this is what is happening behind the scenes. So whenever we start that that main window, is going to initialize a component, which is this window right here. All right, but now, for now, it's just floating in the air. We're not using this anywhere. So how can we use this? Oh, by the way, this is giving me this error because this is a window. So just change that to window, and let me remove all this stuff because I don't think we're gonna use them. Let's let's leave only the system.windows. Okay, so this is the XAML.cs script, and this is our XAML. Now, as I said, we need to initialize this component whenever we call this main window. And where are we going to call this main window? When we click our button, yes? And when we click our button in the app.css, we have defined this place instance to be called, this class in here. All right, so inside this class, we need to add this function. We need to call this function, or basically this is a class, so we need to instantiate a new object from this class. So let's stop talking and let's go let's go to this class. And basically what am I gonna do is just remove everything from here. All right, let me remove also these, and I'm going to leave only the UI document and the document because we need them to interact with our project. And this is the main method, which is execute. It's returning result.succeed. If there's an error, it's returning .failed, and we have this message to show the error. And also I'm going to leave this transaction attribute on transaction mode.manual because we are going to open transactions later on. All right, so as I said, we need to call our window in here. So in here, I'm just going to type inside this try, I'm going to type main window, and I'm going to call this window equals to a new object of main window. All right, so we have started it basically. So whenever we call this, whenever we click on these buttons that we have created in here, they are referenced in this class. So whenever we click on there, this window is going to appear. For now, it is not doing anything. So it is not going to show you any of these properties that you can see in here. It's not going to do anything. If you click on these buttons, it is just a user interface without any interactions. All right, so let's go back in there, and let me remove these also, we don't need them. And now what we need to do is basically start interacting with our window. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is basically get the active view, because when we, or no, wait a minute. The first thing is I'm going to rename this class to be, let's just call it active view manager. All right, so I changed the name in here. So if you do rename it, make sure you reference the correct class in here. So I'm going to save this one, and let's go back to our active manager.cs, and in here I'm going to start interacting with the Revit API. So the first thing is I'm going to create a variable called v or view, and this is going to be the document.active view to get me the view that is used when I'm clicking on this command. All right, so this gets me the active view. Let me make this a bit more bigger. And once I get the active view, I can go ahead and take the view name from there. So I'm just going to say v.name, and also I can say id to grab the ID. So this is going to be, did I reference? Yeah, so this needs to be lowercase. You can put it uppercase, but I want it to be lowercase. So again v template. To get the template, we need to get the template ID. All right, so I'm going to call this variable template ID, and I'm going to say v dot template. So v dot template or view template ID. It is called view template ID. Great. So now the ID, if you have a template, is going to tell you what is the name of the template. Like in here, architectural elevation. If there is no template, it's just going to return -1, and I don't want my window to show -1 because no one is going to understand what is -1. Rather, if I type none, for example, or no template, it's going to be understandable. So in here, I'm just going to write a condition. I'm going to say v template is going to be, and the condition is going to be the following. I'm going to say v template ID, which is the one that we got in here. If this, I'm going to turn it to a string. If this equals -1, then just say none. I wrote name, or you can say no template, for example, no template. All right, so I'm just gonna give it, leave it as none, and if not, I'm going to return the document dot get element using that ID, which is this one, which is the v template ID, this one. Great. And here we need to grab the name. We don't need the object itself, we need a name. All right, so this is a short form of conditionals. So this is the condition in here, and then question mark. If this is true, if this condition is true, then do this. If not, we have this sign in here, and do this if this is false. All right, and now we do have a template. Great. And now we start interacting with our window. So we have created our window in here. To grab those elements, if you remember, we had this label and we added X name. So now we can reference that. All right, so I'm just going to say window dot, and when I click dot, I can grab those. So you can see I just wrote LA, and you can see it's suggesting label name, label ID, and so on. Let's start with the name, and this label. So now it is grabbing the component itself. It's grabbing this label, and to write inside the label, we need to use this content attribute. All right, so we need to go in here and add this content equals to, and it is going to be equal to this v name. All right, so I'm just gonna say v name, but if I write just v name, it's just going to write the name of the attribute. Rather, I want to write name column and then the name of the view. So we can use this string formatting and type name, and here I can add this v name like so. All right, great. Now let's grab the other ones. All right, so we have referenced everything. We have added those. We have added this content to those labels, and now we need to show the window, because we have started our or we have instantiated our class in here, but we did not show the window yet. So to do that, we just need to say window dot show dialog, and there you go. So we are done in here. So this is the way you can add stuff to your window. Just create components, give them a X name, and then come in here to your class, and then reference them by adding them by typing window dot whatever the name of the component is, and then you have access to the attributes of the component, so you can change the content, the color, the height, the width, whatever attribute you want to change. All right, and the second part now is to create the event handlers for these buttons. What is going to happen whenever I click on these buttons? All right, so I want to grab this text, and then when I click on the button, this text is going to be set as the view name. And here when I print, I want to call a function called print. All right, so let me save this one first and go to my XAML.cs file. To make interactions with Revit and this file in here, we need to grab with our window, we need to add this UI document. All right, let me show you quickly how to do that. I want to pass it as an argument in here, and then I have access to the UI document inside this file also. So in here I can say I want to take an argument which is UI document type, which is a UI document type, and we need to grab this one. So let's hover over it and click on Autodesk using Revit UI, and I'm just gonna call it UI doc. All right, and here also we need to pass that argument, which is in our case our UI document. All right, I think it is, yeah, great. So in here I can create a field for that. So let's say public, and this is of type UI document, and let's call this UI doc equals, or no, not equals, and just use the get in here. And you can also you can see in here that I have the UI and the document. For example, in the get element by ID, what is it, get element, we use this doc, so it is nice also to have it in here. So I'm just going to add another field called public, and this is a document. This is not UI document, this is just document, and I'm going to call it doc, and the same thing is going to be get. Okay, so this doc, we need the references, and make sure you import this one, revit.db. Great, and now we can use that inside our constructor in here. So I can say great, and now I have them in here, so I can make interactions with Revit. Okay, so before I forget, there's one thing that I want to add in there, and this title for some reason does not appear if you just write it inside here. So I'm going to grab that title from here and add it to my XAML.cs file. So let's go and copy this over here. All right. Okay, so now we are good, and we need to start writing functions for these two event handlers. So the first one, set view name. In here we need to, as you can see, this takes two arguments. Don't worry about them too much, just leave them. So in here we are just going to say using to open our transaction, because we are going to set a name, which is a transaction. This is of type transaction. I'm going to call it T. This equals to a new transaction, that takes the document again. So I'm going to reference this doc in here, and it takes also as a second argument a name. So I'm going to call this set view name. All right, and we need to open these brackets and t dot start to start our transaction, and also t dot commit to finish the transaction. And inside there's just going to be document dot active view dot name, and I want to change this name to be whatever I write inside this text box. So I think you know how to grab that text box. Just go to the X name that we have defined before. So we need to type in here text, and inside this context of window, this text is understood that it is the name of a component inside our window. All right, so if I type dot, we need the text attribute, and there you go. So whatever we type in there is going to be assigned as the active view dot name, and we need it to be inside the transaction. And don't forget to set this to be manual inside our active view manager class. All right, great. So this is the first event handler. This is for the first button. When we click on this button, you can see in here the click attribute is going to set the is going to call this function called set view name, which is this one. So this is going to happen in there. Great, let's go to the next one. I'm just gonna copy this over because again we need a transaction, and here instead I'm just going to type print view, and instead of doing this, we need to just say active view dot print. There is a function which is just print. There is another function with a boolean, I think, for the settings and all of that. So you can go to the Revit API docs and check those out. I'm just showing you how to handle events in here. So I'm using super simple functions. So there you go, we have handled the second event. When we click on this print view, it's going to call this function in here, and this is going to happen. All right, I think we are done with this one as well. So now everything is ready. Yeah, everything is ready. Let me save everything and build my function, and I'm going to open Revit. I'm not going to open it with this start in here, because if you open it with the debug mode, this is going to be hidden, okay, for debugging reasons. So I'm just going to open it with Revit. So I'm just going to build the solution and see you in a moment. And here we are. Let's go to our tab in here, and there you go. This is our window, and it's given me the properties as we said, and the template is none as we have specified. All right, and I can print the view. I can set the name of this view to be different and all of that. So I hope this video was useful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And there are many other concepts. So if you are a beginner, I'm going to leave many links down below in the description box, so you can check them, things to read, things to watch. And because there is too much things to cover in this WPF topic, anyway, we are going to cover other things in the next video, because we're going to continue with the WPF, just using a different pattern for our coding. called the MVVM. So yeah, see you next time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section, and see you.